Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Me and my buddies work for a private security contractor. Have 10 years experience, another 10 years of previous military experience in Marines. Contracted to work in northern Afghanistan, mostly to support local militia. Near a research facility rumored to test advanced weapons. Sometimes hear loud screeching noises followed by small earthquakes and tremors. Militia would tell stories about seeing fog appear at occupied camps miles away. And every time they go to investigate, the fog will have dissipated and the militia that occupied the camp disappeared and were never seen again. Rumors of chemical warfare testing and attacks once spotted, a village of people that was completely wiped out. Lungs were inflamed and noticeably protruding. No one knew what killed them. Not too long after the discovery, the village was blocked off by special forces.
I work for a security firm. We have a few ex-military and law enforcement who are thoroughly trained and, depending on the contract, considerably well armed. Last year, I was assigned to a nondescript building on the outskirts of Richmond, Virginia. We usually get hired when the government wants to keep something under wraps. The building was large. It seemed like a repurposed hospital but updated and sterile. The property was expansive too, but it had an 8-foot-high chain-link fence and the grounds were under constant CCTV surveillance. We didn't find any of this the least bit odd, fairly commonplace practice really. There was a roster of about 30 personnel who routinely worked in the building. I recognized all of them and knew a few well enough to have brief conversations, but it was always idle chit-chat. None of them ever revealed any information about the site, and I never asked until recently. We had hardly received any visitors. But, more recently, it's been really steady. From military higher-ups, doctors, and various government agencies. I was typically on perimeter patrol and I preferred it that way. Fresh air, no matter how cold, always kept me on my toes, and that's what I was doing the night it happened. The building had been a buzz of activity all day. There had been a record number of visitors. I had seen military vehicles overtly enter the grounds. We had gotten word earlier that the contract was coming to an end and I was going to be reassigned somewhere in the Philadelphia area. At that point, there was only a skeleton crew of 5 or 6 left inside, plus 9 other security personnel. They had doubled us up over the last few days. So it was about 10:30 at night. I had another 90 minutes left on my shift. I was on the eastern edge of the grounds doing a routine check of the fence line when my walkie blared out into the silence. All security was being called to the main entry room. The voice spoke frantically and I couldn't make out who was speaking. I started trotting towards the front of the building when I heard an alarm started blaring inside. It sounded like a fire alarm. I double-timed it and I could see another guard running from the west edge of the perimeter. Right before I reached the door, it flew open and 2 women wearing lab coats burst through the entryway, running down the steps right past me. They didn't stop to talk. The other guard caught up on me and together we moved into the building. Multiple alarms were going off inside the building and the overhead sprinkler system had been set off. Water was pouring down on the tops of our heads. We made our way to the entry point and linked up with 5 of our guys. 3 were missing. None of us knew what was going on and we were under strict orders not to cross past the entry point unless directed to do so by building personnel. Then, suddenly, 2 gunshots from the hallway past the door were followed by a scream of pain which was cut short abruptly. Orders or not, this is what we were here for. So we moved into the hallway, leaving 1 man back to guard the door. The hallway was clean and sterile like you would see in an intensive care ward. We were unfamiliar with this part of the building and when we came to a junction we split into 2 groups. I took the north corridor with 2 other guards and we made our way down the hallway, meticulously checking each room. Most were empty, but others had what looked like medical equipment stored neatly on shelves or covered by tarps. As we neared the end of the hallway, we came upon a set of double doors that crashed open, slamming into the walls, and then a body came soaring down the hallway, slamming into the guard next to me. I raised my arm to the doorway in response, but nothing trained me for what came barreling through. Calling them human would be a stretch, but 3 of them came crashing through the door after the body. Each was 9 feet tall with grayish-green skin and they were completely nude. They bore no signs of gender. Their bodies were lean and a maze of veins ran along each of their limbs. They had human faces, but they were devoid of any type of hair. One of the 3 had a tangle of tubes and wires trailing after it, but the other 2 were riddled with scars and had gaping holes on their torsos. As soon as they saw us, they rushed. I was able to get a single shot off and I watched it soar through the chest of the first one. It didn't even break stride. The last thing I remember then was my head slamming into the hallway wall. I woke up on a military base about 30 miles from where we had been. I immediately knew I was concussed and that I couldn't stand. It was a long time before anyone came to see me, and when they did, it wasn't the least bit enlightening. There was no explanation as to what I had seen or what those things were. Nobody would even formally acknowledge that I had been engaged in any type of combat at all. I did receive fair medical treatment, but that was it. Eventually, one of my superiors came to see me and let me know that I was being placed on temporary leave until I recovered and that I could return to duty after I got home. I tried reaching out to a few of the other contractors I knew, but still, I haven't been able to get in touch with any of them. Once this story gets out, I'm sure they'll know who blew the whistle. I don't know what will happen to me, and at this point, it doesn't really matter. We need to tell people what we saw.
Used to know a 60-year-old ex-aviation engineer in Bozeman. He was a professor in math before becoming a contractor for the government. Apparently, he learned a ton about physics and material science from some of the other guys he worked with and helped with some calculations on some obscure hydrogen bomb. He once rambled on about how he used to have a shape-shifting car he'd use to kidnap people in Middle America. He'd go around, crash into someone's car, and kidnap them, as his car would be untouched and he wouldn't leave a trace. As he'd drive back to his home, he'd shift the shape of his car numerous times. He also said once how he had a key that could unlock any door. He demonstrated on a couple of cars, but I just assumed it was a neat party trick. There was another instance where he ranted about different types of networking cables and how difficult it was to set up a surveillance system for his farm that could track human movement. Not too weird, but he said he'd use it for his basement if he could figure it out. He owned about 40 acres and also owned a massive underground private bunker. Creepiest thing I remember about him is that he would always vehemently disagree with the existence of aliens. Even for a passive, offhanded comment, he would argue with you that there was nothing in the sky but men. Lost touch with him after I left, but some of the shit he used to say would get you thinking, but he was probably a regular old man.
Got any other stories about this guy? He actually sounds interesting.
I remembered a couple, actually. He owned a number of clothing that was about twice the size of XXL, despite being very stout for his age. If I recall correctly, one of his old friends had gigantism, and he kept some of his favorite clothes. I can't exactly remember what he said he did with the car. I want to say it was stolen, but I really can't remember the details. Small tidbits. He had a gun that had an infinite cartridge. It didn't use bullets. Instead, he'd scoop up a load of dirt and it shot compressed dirt balls. It seemed ridiculous then. Still kinda does now. He owned cyanide teeth. Individual cyanide tooths. He even popped one in just to show me they fit. Him and another guy had come up with their own secret language. Sounded nothing like any common languages I've heard before or since. And he would occasionally write in it he was a Freemason and actually tried to get me to join, but also told me how all they did all day was shoot the shit and plan donations to schools. So I didn't take him up on his offer. I say regular old man, because that's just how he came off to me. An old man with a ton of wisdom and experience, but also a sense of humor and exaggeration to come up with crazy stories to justify his knowledge.
Hey guys, I'm an ex-Marine turned into a private security contractor, and I'm going to share a work story with you guys that happened when I was working hellhole job. Be me ex-Marine now working security for a contracting company. Patrolling, guarding some hospital in some foreign country which I won't disclose. Here's the layout. Normal hospital above ground. State-of-the-art. Has lower levels which only high-level clearance personnel are allowed to enter, and our security captain. No idea what happens in those lower labs, nor does anyone really work above ground. Above ground security is permitted use of patrolling with holstered PSM 5.45s, 3-round burst and single shot. Above ground behind 2 clearance doors and 1 checkpoint is an armory for extra security, which contains 1 rack of VDSNs and another rack of body armor. Are we police? Only access to lower levels is 1 security elevator and a ladder in the elevator shaft leading to the lower levels. Literally unable to open this elevator without the right clearance. Our captain always messes with us, telling us they do unworldly experiments down there creating human-animal hybrids. This is the type of crap we do to pass the time as we work 14-hour shifts literally patrolling this hospital looking important. I'm American originally, so a lot of the doctors in the hospital are always admiring. My code name and detail is Playboy, or at least that's the nickname I was assigned because I always spend the days flirting with the hot secretaries and doctors. Literally the only time we see anyone leaving from this one lift to the lower levels is during the late hours of the nights or arriving in the early mornings in groups usually. They never talk to anyone or make eye contact. We always thought of them as snobs. Apparently, our captain disclosed to us off the record that there is a special security force operating on the lower levels. One night in the middle of winter we are working. 12 of us total on security detail at the time. Other than us 12, there are just secretaries and patients waiting for transfer and nurses on hand throughout the hospital. In case of lower level emergency, our protocol is to lock down the lift housing security hub section of the building to separate us from the rest of the hospital. The only way we knew when to lock down was the lower level would signal up to us and our building's lighting would turn an emergency red. Only one comm center from above ground to bottom, which is manned at all times and only used in extreme cases of emergency. Only one way, lower to upper. The way we locked down was by dropping a steel gate over the bridge walkway on both ends and signaling the main hospital security that our section was on lockdown. They'd then make sure that their end was locked down and separated from us. Not once in the 4 years I worked this job did we have a lockdown happen besides once. This is the story I am going to share. As I said, one night in the middle of winter, 12 of us are working detail. 7 of us are sitting at the checkpoint area playing cards and having fun, generally just trying to kill time. Our captain is with us. Other 5 are on patrol throughout the rest of our sector of the building. We're sitting there shooting the shit when suddenly our main building's lighting flicks over to the emergency red. Our captain stops mid-sentence and looks up at the light. His mouth opened with an amazed look on his face. He stutters.
Ooh, lockdown now, get this place secure. Move your asses.
In his stupid accent. We're all like, what the hell is the deal? We're taking our sweet time and we hear our captain over our comms.
Hurry up and get to the armory entrance ASAP.
We're all in panic mode now, not knowing what the hell is going on. The emergency lights are flashing and our side is locked down. Me and another kid in detail finished locking down our section. Proceed to rush over the armory entrance. Everyone is there and panicking besides the captain and these 2 dudes in uniform. Everyone is like, who the hell are these 2 guys? This guy named Piper pipes up and says,
"Ooh, Captain, who are these 2?
Our captain gulps and stutters again.
Our supervisors. They'll be taking over from here on out.
They never gave us their names, so besides from their stupid suits and accents, I have nothing else to go describe them by. So we'll call them Suit 1, Suit 2. Suit 1 pipes up go and motions towards the armory. Our captain then yells,
Move it. Let's go.
We rush into the armory and our captain starts handing out vitalites and body armor. Not once in my time working this job before that night did we have to do any of this besides opening day training. Suit 1 says,
Move to the elevator now.
Suit 2 says and motions towards our captain, comms officer, and some ex-beret.
You're 3 with me now.
They move into the security room opposite of the elevator. Suit 1 says,
Rest of you, with me, we go to the elevator.
Suit 1 starts positioning us like a squad leader.
American and Anon, you go to the right corridor, positioned by the bench. You 5 with me in front of the elevator. You 2 cover the left corridor. Weapons ready.
Weapons ready basically means to raise your weapons. We see Suit 2 behind the security glass using the emergency comms. Our captain and the other 2 with them have looks of dread on their face. The glass room is soundproof. The only way sound can escape to the lobby is if it's buzzed in through a comm on the window. Suit 2 buzzes into Suit 1.
All right, get ready, lift en route.
This is the first time we've seen Suit 1 break posture. He kind of looks gas. He quickly regains his posture.
Ready up, focus. If I say so, you shoot. Okay.
We nod. We see the elevator and use sign lit up. Suit 1 is visibly sweating. Ray behind glass is freaking out on our captain while motioning towards the elevator frantically like an argument. Our captain visibly is trying to calm him down. Comms guy is complaining at Suit 2 while Suit 2 continues looking steadily towards the elevator holding comms in hand. Ray was usually the most badass composed of us all. Never seen him like this. I look towards one of the 5 around Suit 1 and I notice 3 are looking at me with the what the hell is going on looks on their faces. Suit 1 finally breaks the awkward silent halt and draws a holstered weapon which I didn't notice he had and points it towards the elevator. I notice Suit 2 reach down to buzz our lobby comm. He says,
Suit 1, are we ready?
We are a go.
We have no idea how deep the shaft is or how long it takes from the elevator to get from top to bottom. We hear cracks and clacks coming from the shaft. Sounds like distant gunshots. We hear rattling and the sound of screeching metal coming through. I assume the screeching metal is the outer walls of the elevator being forced against the walls of the elevator shaft. The door to the elevator opens and it's pitch black within the elevator. No one can tell what they are looking at. It's pretty much a black mass, or even better described as a void. Suit 1 is shaking and my captain's mouth along with everyone's behind the glass is just wide open. Everyone slowly lowers their weapons and some even mutter. What the hell? We all stare at this black void, not knowing what to do. Suit 1 tries to yell. A loud screech rings out from the mass, causing us to hurl over and hold our hands to our ears in panic. Most of us lose composure and drop our weapons. Suit 1 holds posture and rings off a couple shots. The shrieking gets immensely louder until we are all eventually on the ground. We're all hurled on the floor besides everyone behind the glass. Our captain is visibly shaking. Suit 2's mouth is completely open. The commanding officer is pretty much shivering in a corner. The beret isn't any better off. One of the 5 with Suit 1 reaches for his weapon. We all follow. It is now completely silent besides from our groans and people panicking and yelling.
What the hell do we do?
Suit 1 raises his weapon and yells once again.
Open fire.
We raise our weapons and we all empty a full magazine, not knowing if we actually did anything. From what it looked like from my perspective, it pretty much appeared we were just emptying ammo into a dark room. Finally, someone yells.
What are we shooting at?
Suit 1 finally breaks composure and looks back at Suit 2.
What the fuck do we do?
The void begins to expand outwards into the corridor. Suit 2 is now pale as a sheet. He manages to buzz out,
Fire. Kill it.
By now we finished reloading and began emptying another clip into the void. The more we fired into it, the more it expanded, like the blob from Ghostbusters. One of the 4 in detail in the left corridor lost composure and said, "Screw this," got up and ran. Most of us were scared shitless and had no idea what was going on. We were just mindlessly firing because we were told to. I then look into the void. Like I look deeply into it, I notice that it's not just black in the void, and if you actually look in, you can see things. I look in and I see little specks of light gray, bluish, reddish colors swirling around. It was really mesmerizing. Suit 1 breaks the fascination and yells at the unit who broke formation.
Get back here or face the sentence.
Out of nowhere we hear a snap and the elevator violently jerks downwards. The elevator begins to make the groaning sound that steel makes when bending. We then hear a loud snap and the elevator begins to fall. We hear nothing but the sound of screeching metal for about 10 seconds, eventually followed by a distant crash. The metal doors of the lift begin to close. Everyone is visibly scared and shaking. Suit 1 is bent over gasping for breath, and the foreign unit who fled was in the back corner of the corridor puking. Out of nowhere, about 20 to 30 suits begin coming from the supposed lockdown walkway, rushing in and securing the area. We were all quickly taken separately to different undisclosed locations and debriefed on not to share this with anyone. Our contract is then ended and given a lump sum pay, and from what I heard from one of the guys I kept in contact with from the detail, they hired 32 new contracts for detail. No idea what the Black Void was. No idea what happened in the underground facility. No idea who the suits were. Never met my captain again. Was flown back to America within 3 days. Listed my new application with Blackwater. Blackwater goes to shit. Now I'm just a jobless gun for hire, sharing my stories with friends and random people on 4chan. Go to school, kids.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Working as a private military contractor. Essentially get paid to protect rich and politically influential people in war-torn countries. My second ever job, middle of last year, absolute hell of a city in the Middle East. 20 to 30 people are killed every day in this small town. Extracting a politician who was cooped up in a shitty hotel in a bad area. Meet up with him and his escort. All of the streets in this neighborhood are too narrow to drive down, so our ride is parked not even 3 minutes away. A couple of buildings away from our parked transport when gunshots pop off. Shooter in the building across the street. We grab our guy and duck into a small apartment building that we were outside of. Standing in the hallway trying to get an angle on the shooter and radioing in, I hear a woman scream down the hall. First a short scream, then a long wailing one. I go with my buddy to clear it, make sure it isn't another shooter breaking in. Screaming stops as soon as we get outside. Door is slightly ajar. I peek in, immediately hit with the smell of decomp and a ton of incense. All the furniture in the room is thrown around and pushed to the walls. The middle of the room is filled with candles, the only light other than my flashlight. In the middle of the room is a girl covered in blood. She's hunched over an older woman whose stomach was torn open. My friend screamed and nearly blasted the kid. She just stared at us. It seemed like she was stunned by our flashlights. We back out of the room and close the door. Our guys found another way out of the building and told us to hurry up. We tell them what happened on the ride out of town. Everyone laughs at us.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.